Hey guys, I'm Game Advisor, and today we'll be talking about our opinions on the Dark and Darker Open Alpha. This is kind of just going to be like a first look where we give you our ideas, our opinions on the overall concept of the game, as the game definitely still needs some balance, some bug fixes, and some lag issues, as well as some more content added to it. So do keep that in mind as we're reviewing this, that it is in open alpha right now, and it is not even in early access yet, so it is currently not even purchasable. This is just our first opinions on the overall concept of the game. Now, if you don't know what Dark and Darker is, what you basically need to know is that it is a hardcore fantasy FPS PvPvE adventure / dungeon crawler. So in other words, this is going to work very similar to how games like Tarkov have in the past. So if you've ever played Tarkov, basically just imagine that, but in a PvE world with things like classes like a cleric, there's a wizard, a rogue, a ranger, a fighter, a barbarian, and each class plays a little bit differently and is better at different things. For an example, you've got the cleric, who is the only one who has actual healing spells, so they're going to be able to support their team, give them defensive barriers, buff their damage, all those kinds of stereotypical things you would imagine a cleric could do. And then you got your fighter, who's kind of like the jack of all trades, and he's able to wear pretty much any gear. He specializes in being able to wear a lot of heavy plate armor like any good warrior should be. And then you've also got things like the wizard, who's going to be casting your spells. You've got your ranger, who's obviously going to be firing your arrows, all that good stuff. So again, it's pretty stereotypical. What you would expect a class to do, it does in this game. Now again, do keep in mind that some of these things may change. Some classes may be completely removed. Some could be added to the game. We don't really know just yet since it's still so early in development, but the core concept is definitely there. Right now, what we have is their medium difficulty and their high difficulty dungeon to play through. And these dungeons consist of either 16 to 20 players. And those 16 to 20 players will be in a basically either really small or rather large PvE dungeon kind of experience. So again, this is like Tarkov. You got NPCs running around like skeletons and skull bats and banshees and all sorts of other things that you're going to have to fight along the way. And then there's a harder version which has more elites and more nightmare tier creatures which drop better loot. And again, if we make it to the end of the run and actually survive, we'll get to bring all the loot we gained out with us. All that loot you gain can then be brought into another run in order to try to get even better gear. Again, this is going to work the same way Tarkov works. So if you find, say, a blue rarity item, you could take that item, try to complete the dungeon, and if you do, then you could take it out with you. It could be green. There's all the way up to orange items as well, and there's a whole bunch of different things that go into it. You currently can have a neck, 2 rings, boots, gloves, pants, chest, helmet, and 2 weapons equipped, as well as having different utility items. Utility items contain things like invisibility potions, healing potions, bandages, campfires, hunting traps. You've got your throwing axes, you've got throwing knives. There's a whole wide variety of it, and some of them are locked behind certain classes. So like for an example, the hunting trap can only be used by the ranger. It's a specialty of theirs. No one else has access to that, not even the fighter, who can use things that normally other classes wouldn't be able to use. But again, the idea here is that there's lots that you can get. There's lots that you can bring out with you. There's rare gear and all sorts of other things. And then once you actually get out of the dungeon and you have that gear, you can also sell it, as well as any other little knickknacks you might have found, in order to purchase things that you do want from different traders. Again, I'm going to keep using Tarkov, and I apologize. It's just such a direct comparison. It's hard not to. But basically, you're going to have a bunch of traders you can sell things to, and they'll give you gold in exchange. And then you can use that gold to purchase different items that you might want, like more meds or better armor or better weapons, etc., etc. In the future, they do plan to have a reputation system built in for these traders. Again, identical to Tarkov. They're also planning to have a quest system, again, identical to Tarkov, and a whole bunch more that they're putting into this game. You can tell they're clearly inspired by their predecessors here. They want the game to be a certain way, and at the moment, we can only actually group up to 3 players. They're talking about making it up to 4 players in a team, and there are no class restrictions. So you could have, say, 3 fighters, 3 wizards in a party if that's what you want to do. There are no restrictions to that whatsoever. Now, one of the things that Tarkov and other similar games like this do not do is they do not have a leveling system that benefits the player. Yes, there are leveling systems in other similar games, but they don't actually give you hard stat values. In the future, they plan on adding in a talent tree where you'll be able to put in talents to get different bonuses, but right now what we have available to us is essentially a passive tree that you unlock extra slots in, which is really nice to have. Some of these passives can be incredibly impactful too, like just making you do an extra 10% headshot damage, which could easily kill an opponent a little bit faster and save you in a fight. There's all sorts of different stuff in there. I mean, you've got like things like the cleric being able to heal somebody and then he benefits a little bit from that heal as well. And then you've got all sorts of generic stuff too, with just like flat damage or defense increases or flat mobility increases, and it all depends on your class. So every class is going to have different passes as well as abilities, and that's another unique thing that Dark and Darker has going for it. You've got 2 abilities you're allowed to equip currently at any point in time. Again, that may change in the future, and these abilities can dramatically impact your gameplay. Personally, I used a lot of the Ranger, and his main ability that was super powerful is his ability to shoot 3 arrows in rapid succession, so you're able to fire 3 arrows downrange very, very quickly. He does have some other ones, like being able to eat bread, which is essentially a free heal for his class, and a couple of other classes do have free heals as well, but they're only able to heal themselves. Clerics are the only characters in the game that can actually heal another player, so if you want to have that, you're going to have to bring a cleric. Another thing that Dark and Darker brings to the table that other games have not in the past in this genre is a big giant circle that kind of pushes you all towards the center. This means that your games are at most going to last 20 minutes if you're going all the way to the very bottom floor, which is something I'll explain in just a second. But basically it works just like any other battle royale. You have an enclosing circle that's slowly going to push you into the center of the map. That's going to cause players to have to get closer to each other and have to fight it out, as what's going to happen is you're going to have what are called portals. There are blue and red portals. The blue portals are called escape portals. It's pretty straightforward. You interact with it, a portal appears, you go into the blue portal, and it will escape you from the dungeon. You get out with all your stuff. Now there's another option called down portals. These are red portals. The red portals will take you down to another level of the dungeon where there's basically a bunch of demons and harder to deal with creatures. If you do go down there, there's also a boss you can fight, which we did not actually get to, but he is supposedly extremely hard. And the point here is that there's going to be even better loot in that lowest floor level. However, you have to first get through the normal floor without dying to players and without dying to all the mobs, which can be a bit tricky as there's traps and so many things that can kill you. It's not just skeletons. There is constant fear of death, and there is no passive healing at all. So if you want to heal, you've got to have bandages, you've got to have health potions, and in your first few runs, you're not going to have any of that, so it makes it even more challenging. But again, that's all fine and dandy, but one of my favorite features about Dark and Darker is the ability to resurrect your allies. So basically the way this works is if an ally dies, you can remove their chest armor if they're wearing any, and then remove their soul heart. That soul heart you can then take to a resurrection altar and resurrect them for a small portion of your own HP. Usually it's about 25%. The idea here is that it allows your friends to have a chance to come back into the game, but it doesn't guarantee it because these altars are few and far between. Now, if you are playing as a cleric, you can get 1 cast of resurrection right now. Again, these balances may change, there may be more resurrection altars, they may change the whole resurrection system. But the idea here is that if somebody wants to resurrect you, they can. Clerics actually get this spell that they can bring in with them, and there's a whole spell system I'm not going to go into. That's not really what this video is about. But basically, if they have it, they can resurrect a friendly player without having to go to an altar or expending any of their own HP to do so. Now, at the end of the day, there's a lot more to talk about with Dark and Darker. But what you need to know if you got nothing else out of this is that first off, if you're watching this right now, the game is probably still free to play on open alpha. You need to go check this thing out because it is incredibly fun. I have friends who have hated fantasy games their whole life and only played shooters like Tarkov, CSGO, Call of Duty, and are now in love with Dark and Darker. This has probably been one of the best alphas or betas I have ever played in my entire life, and it was incredibly fun, but yet incredibly frustrating, as any good looter shooter survival style game definitely should be. It is a hardcore game after all, and they want you to get frustrated, as that is part of the fun. Again, there is a lot more to this game that I am not talking about in this video, as I'm just trying to give you an idea. But remember, this is an open alpha right now, and there will be more test phases if you miss this one, so make sure to go follow and wishlist on their page so that you get notified of them. Either way, I really enjoyed this game, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it too if you just give it a chance, even though the combat does look a little bit clunky, and if I'm being honest, is a little bit clunky at the time of recording this video, but that's understandable, again, with it being in, open alpha and all. But the point here is, give it a shot. You'll probably end up liking it, even if you think you wouldn't. With that being said, I will stop ranting and wasting all of your time so you can go enjoy the game yourself, and I want to give a big shout out to all of our Platinum and Above channel members, which include Caustic FPV, Jonathan S, and Jim Phillips. Thank you all so much for watching. I am Game Advisor, and I'll see you next time.